Hello and welcome back to another video. This week we're on Boxing Podcast episode number 7. We're going to be previewing this week's coming up action. We've got plenty to uncover. We have Gervonta "Tank" Davis headlining at the MGM Grand in Las Vegas against Frank Martin. Should be a very, very good fight, an interesting main event. You have on the undercard, the chief support is David Benavidez versus Alexander Gvozdyk in Benavidez light heavyweight debut, which should be very, very interesting. Elsewhere, you have Subriel Matias against Liam Paro in Puerto Rico, which should be a great fight in its own right. You also have Subriel Billam-Smith defending his WBO Cruiserweight World Championship in a rematch against the Midnight Train, Richard Riakporhe at Selhurst Park, London. So after a weekend of not too much boxing on, obviously we had a little bit there, but this week we have 3 really big cards to uncover. So we'll do prediction videos a little bit later on in the week, but we'll just kick this week off with a podcast to preview the upcoming action. So start in Las Vegas, MGM Grand Garden Arena, one of the most iconic venues over the past 20-30 years of boxing. Obviously a lot of the cards have been at the T-Mobile Arena in more recent times, so great to see the MGM still getting big fights. For me, it's the most iconic arena in boxing. All the big fights of all the big fighters have performed at the MGM Grand. So Tank versus Frank, very interesting fight. A lot of people in the industry very high on Frank Martin. He obviously hasn't had the level of opposition of Gervonta Davis, but with Derek James backing him, a lot of people in the trade seem to be giving him a very realistic shot in this fight. Tank's been on an absolute tear and fought the who's who, and arguably the biggest star in American boxing right now. Going to be a very interesting fight. I'm looking forward to seeing the the build up in fight week. It was quite an entertaining press conference to kick off and announce things, but you'd have to feel that it's going to be kicking on now for Tank into a mega fight afterwards. Vasily Lomachenko's name would be mentioned. This is providing he gets through Frank Martin. And for Martin, it's his big chance. It's a big chance to announce himself on the big stage. Is he going to be, the future star of American boxing? Because if you beat Tank Davis, you take that mantle from him essentially. Obviously Tank hasn't been out for over a year now. Fought Ryan Garcia, obviously, in a fight that many said Garcia was weight drained in. So yeah, he hasn't been as active as probably he would have liked to. Has some great names on his record. Obviously Barrios, who's been linked with a Pacquiao fight this week, Rolly Romero, so on and so forth. But should be an interesting fight. Prediction coming later in the week, but cannot wait for that one. Tank's a huge star of the sport, so good to see him back out. Hopefully he's out again later on in the year after this. We don't want to see Tank fighting once or twice a year. That's just not gonna suffice. For me, I'm really looking forward to this next one. David Benavidez against Alexander Gvozdyk. Benavidez debut at 175 pounds. We know Turki Al-Sheikh is wanting to make him against the winner of Bivol and Beterbiev. That's going to be happening on October the 12th. So if he's going to make that fight, he's going to have to get through Alexander Gvozdyk. For me, I want to see Benavidez Canelo at 168. Although, Benavidez probably is more suited to 175. He's an absolute monster at 168 pounds. His last few fights, beating Demetrius Andrade, Caleb Plant, some good names on the record now. Fair play to him for getting in at the deep end. His 175-pound debut. I know Gvozdyk's 37 years old. Obviously had that beating from Artur Beterbiev, and he's come back since and won 3 fights. But for me, it's just about what that beating from Beterbiev's taken out of him. Obviously, there was fear of a bleed in the brain after that initially happened, but it just turned out that it was just a concussion, which is good. But at 37, we really need to see what Gvozdyk has left now. But it's an acid test. It's a good fight for me. Really solid matchmaking. Throwing Benavidez straight in at 175 pounds to see what he's got. Then I'd imagine we'll see him as part of Riyadh season towards the end of the year after that. Do they do the winner of Beterbiev against Bivol straight away? If Beterbiev wins, he can't have that many more fights left with his list of injuries and his age, obviously. For me, that's the stylistic match of the dreams, Beterbiev against David Benavidez. But obviously, it's going to be a tough ask to get through Dimitri Bivol. So the co-main and main event on the MGM card, absolutely fantastic. Really looking forward to both of those fights. I think we could get two real crackers. Tank Davis against Frank Martin and David Benavidez against Alexander Gvozdyk. So we'll move to Puerto Rico now. You have Liam Paro against Subriel Matias, the boogeyman of the 140-pound division, the one whose name does not like to be mentioned by the other champions or contenders for that matter. Liam Paro coming off a career best win against Montana Love. He has serious power, and obviously we all know the knockout power of Subriel Matias. Obviously, beat every opponent he's ever been in there with. Had the one loss, but rectified that a little bit later. I think he's won the last 5 since the defeat by KO. I think Liam Paro is a bit more of a live wire than people are giving him credit for in this fight. From what I'm reading and seeing online, is everybody just thinks Matias is going to drill through him straight away, which is possible, but I think we'll get a bit of a shootout here. Matias has been hurt in the past. If Liam Paro lands on him, it's not to say that, he can't drop him or he can't put him in trouble or even finish him. So I think low-key this could be the fight of the weekend. I'm really, really looking forward to it. Obviously, I would favour Subriel Matias to win that. After that, we need to be looking at unification fights for me, probably, the likes of Teofimo Lopez. I think that would be a good fight stylistically as well. Obviously, Devin Haney's going to be fighting Sandor Martin. Purse bids have been called for that. But yeah, that should be an absolute crack. I think we could get a bit of a shootout on that one on Saturday in Puerto Rico. Just hope we don't get clashes going on. I'd imagine that the networks will do the right thing and maybe try and run at opposite times, hopefully, especially between the main events. But whether you get a clash in Benavidez versus Gvozdyk and this fight, I don't know. But hopefully the networks can liaise between themselves and get that sorted, because that's going to be an absolutely fantastic matchup between two power punchers. And lastly, we go to Selhurst Park. Chris Billam-Smith defending his WBO Cruiserweight World Championship in a rematch against the Midnight Train Richard Riakporhe. Riakporhe winning split decision first time round. And what was a little bit of a stalemate, should we say? It was a good fight, but it didn't catch fire like maybe we would have imagined. But I think this one's going to be an absolute war. I think there's a lot more on the line this time. It's a home tie for Riakporhe. Billam-Smith's been fighting in Bournemouth at his home. He fought at the Vitality Stadium when he won the title against Lawrence Okoli. So yeah, I think we're going to get a bit more of a barn burner this time. A much bigger stage, obviously, for both men this time around. Again, prediction will be coming later in the week, but I just think this has war written all over it. Billam-Smith obviously took the belt off of Coley around about a year ago. Did look a little bit vulnerable in his first defense against Mateusz Masternak. He definitely showed signs of weakness a little bit there, and I'm sure Riakporhe definitely watched that and took heart from it for sure. Obviously, I think Masternak broke a rib or something like that at the end, but Billam-Smith was coming on stronger from there. Riakporhe's more been treading water, should we say. I know he got the win over Krzysztof Gvozdyk in 4 rounds, but that probably was a shell of himself, to be completely honest. But yeah, I would potentially favour Riakporhe in that one, but again, I'll break it down a little bit later on this week. On the undercard, you have some good fights. European title action in Isaac Chamberlain taking on Jack Massey. That should be good. You also have Dan Aziz and Ben Whittaker. How can you not like watching Ben Whittaker fight? He's a great talent. His situation with boxers is very interesting. Every single fight, there seems to be rumors. Is it his last fight? Is it not his last fight? So yeah, that should be interesting. But 3 fantastic shows on this weekend. Obviously starting in Crystal Palace in the UK, then we head on stateside and to Puerto Rico after that. But who's who, and lots of action for us to divulge into this weekend. Looking forward to all of it. Prediction breakdowns will be coming on later this week. That'll do it for another episode of the podcast, number 7 in the books. Please like, comment, and subscribe to the channel. Plenty more fighter interviews and everything like that lined up. So have a good one, guys. All the best.